All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is 12 o'clock, so I say let's get started. So thank you for joining us. My name is Lori Sad, and I'm part of the business development team here at KMA HR Consulting. And I want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar, Year-End Best Practices for HR with Karin Nicoll. And we know your time is valuable, so we do hope that you benefit from today's session. If we have time, we will have a Q&A near the end. We'll also be sending all attendees a checklist of today's presentation, along with your SHRM credit. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to today's speaker, Karin Nicoll. Karin has nearly 2 decades of human resources experience, preceded by many years of leadership. She's currently one of our HR consultants here at KMA, providing consulting services, as well as learning and development presentations on leadership. She has supported retail, manufacturing, engineering, nonprofits, property management, and other industries in the area of strategic planning, performance management, benefits, staff development, and compliance. Karin received a Bachelor of Science from Charter Oak State College in Corporate Communication and a Master's of Science from Quinnipiac University in Organizational Leadership and Human Resources. A New Hampshire resident, Karin embraces the snow and enjoys skiing and snowshoeing and just being outdoors. So, without further ado, take it away, Karin.
Thank you, Lori. That was really very nice. I'm very honored to work with some amazing KMAers, especially you, Lori. So thank you.
Thank you.
And also, thank you to everyone who's attending today. Human Resources has so many responsibilities each and every day and each and every month, particularly as we approach year end. So probably many of you have already been through open enrollment and you've ticked off some of those duties and those responsibilities. HR is really a wonderful form of alphabet soup, isn't it? When you think about it, FMLA, ACA, ADA, LTD, HSA, FSA, and then of course we have W-2, W-4, 401k, 1095, 1094, and 1095. Well, anyway, you get the point. And we touch all of them. So we're going to go over many of these today, including what we should be paying attention to for the rest of December. And I am not a subject matter expert in all of these areas. So perhaps like you, I know a little bit about a lot of HR stuff. And it's also likely that many of you may have more detailed experience with certain aspects of what we'll be discussing today. HR should never be expected to remember every single thing at the top of our heads, and yet often we are, and often we do. And it's not easy, especially when you consider the ever-changing ingredients in the alphabet soup. But remember, we have resources and we have partners, so we want to make sure that we use them and rely on them. As HR professionals, compliance is key. And of course, we always encourage our leaders to consult with legal professionals as it's appropriate for any legal advice. So attorneys are often very specialized, a little bit unlike HR, even though, you know, certainly HR, we have consulting and recruiting, compensation, benefits, and the like. Attorneys generally specialize in maybe one area. So things like real estate, trusts and estates, family law, patents, and of course, our favorite, employment law. And they do have the advantage of being true subject matter experts in their varied fields. HR professionals, especially if maybe you are HR Department of One, touches many, many aspects of human resources as we support our employee populations. And I know I don't need to tell you that, but I'm telling you anyway. Okay, so a little disclaimer here. So this information is not intended and it does not constitute legal advice. These are best practices and they're not intended to be comprehensive compliance training. But I know you'll get a lot out of it, so let's get started. Here are some of the things that we will cover today. And while this is titled Year-End Considerations, we will really, it's kind of like a year in the life, and we will tee things up for 2023. All right, so a few standard year-end considerations. We have the ACA. So this is the health insurance coverage that the employer offers. And there's the 1095 form where company administrators must finalize this form by the end of business. This year it's January 14th of 23, so next year. The purpose is to demonstrate that the healthcare coverage that's being offered to all eligible full-time employees, and the dates are due to the employees by March 2nd. So for 2023, the affordability threshold is decreasing, and that's because the poverty rate has decreased as well. And then final payroll cycles. So you want to make sure that employees' names and social security numbers are in the correct format. Proper withholding has been made for taxable fringe benefits for things like bonuses. And then your W-4 is up to date. So employee addresses are on file, make sure that they're correct. It's a good idea to check them now. If you didn't do that during open enrollment, that's another good time to do it. And this way you can avoid any issues at W-2 mailing time. And then we have 401k notices. So the plan sponsor is responsible for ensuring that its plan is compliant, right? And it must also meet the IRS filing requirements. After October 3rd, but before December 1st of 23, plan administrators must provide safe harbor notices to participants and their beneficiaries if the plan is expected to use safe harbor testing. Other notices may also be due, and you want to work with your third-party administrator. They should be able to help you with this. And again, you know, it's great to work with your partners as much as you can. And then you also want to remind employees about their max contributions before the year end. EIN registration, so your employer identification numbers. If you have a new presence in a state that maybe you didn't have before, you want to make sure that you have your new EIN number registration. And you want to work with your payroll provider to ensure that they have that information as well, so that they have the states in which you have a presence. Remind employees to use any remaining FSA account funds before year end, and remind if there's any allowance for carryover and how much and when. Also, any accrued but unused time off. Kind of a trigger to have a conversation with your leadership to make sure that they're having conversations with their employees, so that they're not waiting till year end and everybody wants to take a vacation. All right, a few new state laws. So here's Maine, right? This amendment provides that private employers with 11 or more employees must pay all unused vacation to a separated employee at the succession of employment, regardless of the employer's policy. And payment must be made in full no later than the employee's next established payday. So the payout requirement will not apply to, say, public employees. And additionally, if there is a collective bargaining agreement, that will govern first. Also, it does state just vacation, doesn't mention PTO. This was a conversation that had been taking place and was they decided to keep it with the verbiage vacation. So if you have a PTO plan, vacation, sick, personal in one bucket, you're not required, yet it is definitely a good common practice. So they didn't ask me about this, but I probably would have had a different idea. Maybe just say PTO. And I read this morning, there was some conversation that said, you know, if you decide that you want to deny this to your employees, then you should definitely have a consult with your employment attorney. And then we have a new law in New Hampshire. So this is kind of a unique approach to providing paid family leave and medical leave, and it's not been seen in any of the other states so far. So unlike other programs, the Granite State Paid Family Leave Program, which is GSPFLPI, because it's an insurance program, another alphabet soup, is voluntary. It goes into effect January 1st, and it is an insurance program. So there's no minimum hours required to work. MetLife is currently the insurance carrier for state employees, and the state employees will develop the risk pool. And any large employers, so 50 or more, so if you are a company of 50 or more, anywhere you have one employee in New Hampshire, you will be required to provide a payroll code for the deduction. So even if you only have one employee, you must have that payroll code, because individuals may purchase their own and pay through deductions. Employers who do opt in can contribute all, they can contribute some, or they can contribute none of the premium. And there are 6 and 12-week plans. And opting in for employers can really reward them with a tax credit. So you get a tax credit for opting in. Some of the benefits that are provided. So eligible employees will receive 60% of their average weekly wage. And some of the reasons include those that you typically see under FMLA. So caring for an employee's spouse or child, or maybe they're caring for a covered service member. So it's not just the employee's health. You can see it expands job protection, and it pays for other leaves beyond FMLA. So an employer action, you should consider the program to determine if you want to opt in, and then create or revise any policies that you may have currently, including the employee right to opt in if the employer does not opt in or offer an equivalent coverage. And remember, if you opt in, there's a tax credit. Okay, so we've included the New Hampshire states plus New York and California. The state of Maine, I just confirmed this morning, is increasing to $13.80. And then the city of Portland and also Rockland, their minimum wage will be increasing to $14 in 2023. All right, so plan limits for 2023. All right, so contribution limits for 2023 are considered to be unprecedented. The total employee contribution limit for all 401k and 403b plans, and these are for folks under 50, will go up to $22,500 in 2023. And this is up $2,000, which is really a large increase. Also, the catch-up contribution limit will increase to $7,500. So for employees who are 50 years of age and older, the employee contribution limit will be capped at $30,000 in 23. This description shows the 22 and 23 limits for self-only and family coverage. Also note that the IRS opted again to keep the same maximum permitted catch-up for HSA contribution. And this is for eligible employees who are 55 and older. And that's capped again at $1,000. So you likely have already worked this through with your broker if you happen to be on a calendar year renewal. So you've probably already updated all of your plan communications here. And then the healthcare FSA, allows you to carry up to over $570 for any unused funds into 23 when you re-enroll. So this means, for example, if you had contributed $1,000 and you spent $430, then you may carry over $570 into 2023. And then your dependent care FSA, you are allowed an extra 2.5 months to spend that balance. Okay, a couple of other things here. So Social Security tax, the maximum earnings that are taxed have changed over the years, as you can see looking at this chart. If an employee earned more than the maximum in any year, whether it be in one job or several, only the maximum is used to calculate the benefits. And the maximum for 22 is now $155,000. So again, if you have any questions about this, you want to make sure that you work with your payroll provider. And affirmative action, if you have 50 or more employees and at least one government contract of $50,000 or more, then you should have an affirmative action plan in place. If you're not sure about this, you should probably find out and check with leadership. Finance generally knows, and there are third-party administrators who can help you write them. EEO reporting, there was a question about this, so I hope we answer it. Organizations with 100 or more employees are required to submit demographic workforce data, and federal contractors with 50 or more employees meeting certain criteria to submit demographic workforce data, including data by race, ethnicity, gender, and job categories. So the EEO-1 data collection is tentatively scheduled to open in April of 23. And I just encourage you to check the website that will be provided to you, the document that Lori sends at the end of this. I checked recently and they still haven't announced the actual date in April of 23, but that should be forthcoming. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try this little thing here with Q&A. There should be a little Q&A button up at the top of your screen. And if you don't mind playing along, let's see how this goes. I reviewed this deck yesterday with Lori and it went well. And then I reviewed it last night with my husband. And while it was really nice of him to sit with me and go through it, he actually yawned. And I looked at him, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Really? You're yawning? And, I mean, I don't find his line of work all that interesting all the time either. But he said, well, yeah, I don't know, maybe you want to tell a joke or something. So I thought, all right, well, so here it goes. So I'm going to ask you a question. And if you think you know the answer, if you can type it in the Q&A, not the chat, but the Q&A, we'll see how this works. Here's the question. What is a pirate's favorite letter? What is a pirate's favorite letter? R, 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 I. I love it. Thank you for playing along. Those are great answers. They love the R, they love the I, but the C is where their heart is. Sorry about that, but thanks for playing along. And we'll see what my husband thinks about that. Anyway, maybe we're more awake now. All right, a few more things here. So COVID is unfortunately still a thing, right? And the CDC is still your best resource for providing current information and helping to keep your employees safe from COVID. So always, as things come up, refer to the CDC guidelines. There is a new EEOC poster. So the Know Your Rights poster replaces EEO, it's the law. And the difference is it uses more straightforward formatting, plain language, and explains how employees and job applicants as well can file a charge with the EEOC if they believe that they've experienced a form of discrimination. It's dated October 20th of 22, and the EEOC wants you to use this version. So please use the one that says revised 10/20/2022 going forward. And this new poster includes a few substantive changes, like stating that harassment is a prohibited form of discrimination, clarifying that sex discrimination includes discrimination based on pregnancy, related conditions, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And they've added a handy QR code for digital access to information about filing a charge of discrimination, and stating information about equal pay discrimination for federal contractors. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have the new EEO poster posted in your all of your locations. And because you have so many remote workers, if you have an intranet or something like that, you want to make sure that it's available digitally. For willful failure to post the poster now, it may result in a maximum fine of up to $612 per each offense. So probably want to avoid that. Okay, so sometimes employers receive these survey requests from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we're not always sure if they're like voluntary, mandatory. It says they're mandatory. And I remember having conversations, do we really need to do this? Because it sort of seemed official, but not. So guess what? They are mandatory in many states. So all New England states that are pictured in blue in the map here, it's mandatory. So the exception is Massachusetts. So Massachusetts, there you go. You rock, I guess. I also posted on the left-hand side some of the other states that they're mandatory for those of you who have presence outside of New England. So the OEWS, which is the Occupational Employment and Wage Statistics Program, it's really helpful because it does produce employment and wage estimates. It looks at 830 or more occupations across 400 industries, and it bases the survey on all of these business establishments. So it can help leaders, assess measurements of occupational wages, costs, benefits, and the like. So when and if you get it, you should fill it out unless you're in Massachusetts. AMA conducts a benefits survey most years. All of our clients are invited to participate, and many of them do. This employee benefits survey helps us to gain detailed insights into the New England specific employer market, including things like paid time off, insurance, retirement benefits, flexible work, and reimbursements. So total rewards review is the best practice and should be considered. KMA contact, if you're interested, will be provided to you by Lori if this is something that you want to consider for next year. All right, home stretch here. So coming up for Q1, January, ensure that you've got your posters up. Remember, posters can be purchased for a fee, or they can be downloaded from each state Department of Labor website. Be sure to access each state where you have a presence, and you might want to consider putting something electronically on your internet if that's available to you and you have remote workers. The Form 1099 NEC, the deadline for the form is January 31st of 23. And this is for if you've made payments to any contractors totaling $600 or more. And then the ACA form 1095C, company administrators must finalize the form data by the end of the business day, January 14th, 23. It's also, it's a good time to do a handbook review. It doesn't have to happen in January, but it's always a good idea to review your handbook, your policies and procedures, because things keep changing, right? And it's always a good idea to have your employment attorney review it as well. And then, of course, we've got the mailings of the W-2s, and those must be mailed by January 31st of 23. February, know your industry, right? So know if you're required to maintain OSHA logs. Check the OSHA website. And if you are, this must be posted from February through April. And then February 28th is a deadline for filing the paper versions of the 1094s and the 1095s, and these go to the IRS. And then in March, you've got your electronic filings, right? So that would be for your OSHA 300, and then the forms 1094 and 1095, and those must go to the IRS by March 31st. And coming up in Q2, so April, review is a good time to review employment trainings requirements. So, things like harassment training, for example, some states require for all employees to receive training within 6 months of hire or promotion if they're promoted into a leadership role. And some states, they require it within a year. Some require yearly awareness and prevention training. So it's really good to know what your state requirements are. And it's also good to provide in training, because it can often lead, it can segue into discrimination training, which is really important. And maybe you have some safety training. So the video display training is required in Maine every year. And this is for employees who sit at a monitor or computer for 4 hours or more per day. So that's a yearly requirement in Maine. And perhaps you're involved in a hearing protection program. So that would be for any individuals who are exposed to 85 decibels or more for 8 hours or more. And updating updates regarding the 2022 EEO data collection, including the opening date. Hopefully that will be posted soon. That's all in April. And then in May, if you have interns, this is usually when they start, right? They've finished their school year and they're ready to begin working for your company. So try to get them started on the right foot. Make sure they have meaningful projects, something fun to work on and certainly related to their degree, and not just the work that other people don't want to do. While it's uncertain what the future will bring in terms of inflation, we know we need to show appreciation to our employees if we want to retain them. We want them to be engaged and productive, right? So you can do this through your base pay programs, spot bonuses, and all that. Although recognition and development and well-being are really important. But you want to know what's important to your employees. So make sure you listen to them and regularly share your appreciation with them. Base pay is important, but it's not necessarily the main reason that employees stay or decide to leave. And then in June, end of Q2. So is your department involved in reforecasts for end of year? I would hope so. HR should have a place at the table. And if you're reforecasting for year end, depending on what your fiscal year may be, you will likely be asked to pull reports for, like, say, for budgeting, maybe for events, trainings, recruiting, turnover, headcount, and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure you show your HR value. All right, coming up in Q3. So the Form 5500 filing, this is for pension and health and welfare benefits plan for the calendar year, is July 31st. And then you want to file the Form 5500 to report information on the qualification of the plan. For other plan years, the due date is the last day of the 7th month of the plan year. And so this reports information concerning the qualification of the plan, its financial condition, investments, and the operations of the plan. So again, work with your broker. If you need help with this, the first time I had to fill one of these out, oh my goodness, I was nervous. But thankfully, my broker just walked me all the way through it, and I was very grateful. And in August, so I couldn't think of a whole lot of things here, which is great, right? Maybe we get a little break, maybe we don't. Maybe it's the end of your fiscal year. I don't know. But hopefully you can invest in yourself, try some self-care, enjoy your friends and your family, and enjoy summer. And then in September, you've got your 5500 summary annual report. And again, this is for calendar year plans. And this is the summary of the annual financial report that most plans must file with the Department of Labor. And this is sent annually to participants within 9 months after close of the plan year, if you're not calendar. Again, work with your broker. October, employers with health plans send notice annually to Medicare eligible participants, and this needs to be done before October 15th, regardless of the plan year in this case. And as with open enrollment notices, don't forget your former employees who may be on COBRA. And again, if HR is involved in budgeting, and I hope it is, you want to look at events, recruiting, turnover, headcount, and all that sort of thing for next year if you're budgeting for 24. And then October, that's when they have all those wonderful college recruiting events. If you're hiring interns, you want to get the good ones early, and you want to go to the schools where you're going to find your interns, your best interns, and the good ones get snapped up early. So I wouldn't delay there. And it's a great kind of proving ground, and you might be able to hire some great people. And then in November, the general recommendation is to send all participants and ensure Employee Retirement Income Security Act. So this is ERISA. Required health plan notices are sent to your employees, to all employees annually. And this just protects the plan from any mismanagement or abuse that could occur. And then December, and here we are. So in December, a few things to keep in mind. You want to confirm your employee addresses now so that the W-2s go to the correct place. And former employees to people who have maybe left, but that still must get a W-2. New employer identification number, EIN registration for state tax agencies is all set up if you're in a new state. And then the ACA form data by the end of business on January 14th of 2023. So you're likely probably going to be working on this very soon. And then remind employees about remaining FSA funds and time off that may expire at year's end, as well as any accrued unused PTO, or maybe you have a use it or lose it plan. And then plans for next year. A couple of things to keep in mind. Consider putting relevant dates in your calendar with alerts and deadlines. So things like, anniversaries, work anniversaries, when these reports should be started and when they're due, and that sort of thing. And then, holidays are coming. So try to enjoy yourself with friends and family. And with HR, I always say it's kind of like shampoo, rinse, repeat, right? Do it all over again. So, right, it's definitely a year in the life of HR.